Okay, folks, please, I hope you will find a seat, and we're anxious to get started. I know that Secretary Burgum is on his way, so we decided not to hold all of you up. I can't afford the billing hours in this room, and so we want to get going here. My name is John Hamre. I'm the president at CSIS, but my role today is just ornamental. I'm just here to welcome you and to set the stage just a little bit. This is, I think, probably the most prestigious conference we've ever had, and the audience is here, the senior people, is just really remarkable. And I think it's for three reasons. I think first, and really most important, was the very, very strong partnership that we have with the State Department, and Secretary Rubio and his staff really has been exceptionally helpful. So I think that's the first thing. I think the second thing is, Secretary Burgum's here. The second thing is, I think, the surging importance of this issue, and it really is as we move from molecules to electrons, it's going to become the foundation, and of course everybody wants to understand where it goes. And then the third is, frankly, the credibility that our program has because of Dr. Baskaran, and I will turn to her to introduce Secretary Burgum and to really get this started. I think the reason that the State Department turned to us, in addition to Dr. Baskaran's credibility, is because we're a think tank that wants not just to massage ideas, but to implement them. We want to get things going. And I think the world really is needing action at this time. And I think for action, it requires three things. We have to have senior representatives of government who are here that understand the strategies that their countries have. We have to have senior executives from the mining and processing industry that would be implementing this. And then we have to have the finance world to mobilize capital. And we have all of that here today. So the importance of this session is terrific, and it only will be successful when we get you engaged with the speakers, because that's how we're all going to be learning today. Why were we asked to do this? Well, as I said, Dr. Baskaran's credibility really made it possible. But it's also because the administration is really leading forward, as you've seen. And, there's an old expression, open for business. They're open for business. And you'll see that because we have Secretary Burgum here. He is the most powerful figure in Washington when it comes to anything about critical minerals. And we'll have Secretary Lutnick with us this afternoon. So it's going to be a very, very good program. Let me ask Dr. Baskaran to please come up and get this started for real, and I'll go make sure I have a chance to talk to Secretary Burgum. Dr. Baskaran.
Excellencies, ministers, distinguished guests, and industry leaders, good afternoon and welcome. It's truly an honor to host this event here today. When I think back about 13 years ago, I started my career. I'm American, but I moved to South Africa and I was in a mining town. I remember the entire first year I was there, they called me CNN because they had not heard another American in their lives. And I think forward to 13 years, did I think that we would be hosting one of the State Department's largest ministerials focused entirely around critical minerals? Not a chance. But before we begin, there are a few thank yous I'd like to say. So first to Leland and David at the National Security Council, who have really spearheaded this agenda in truly remarkable ways and making an event like this possible. To Andrea Donnelly and Dave Williams at the State Department, who have been a dream team on this ministerial. I don't say it lightly, but the amount of hours that were put in, this entire event was pulled together in 5 weeks. And Dave, who was running the ministerial, still had time to put stickers on your name tags with us over the weekend. So if that's not a commitment to public service, I don't know what is. Today's agenda brings together leadership from the White House, the Departments of State, War, Interior, Commerce, Energy, EXIM, DFC, USTDA, and more. We've welcomed more than 45 government delegations from 6 continents and over 125 industry executives spanning capital markets, mining, manufacturing, and defense. It's an incredible agenda. And so much of that has been possible through the incredible village that is CSIS. It is not easy to put an event like this together. So it sounds like a lot. It really is. But over the course today, you'll hear 8 firesides, have 7 roundtables, and 2 panels. And when earlier I talked about how there's been such a shift in mining over the course of my career. And what it really tells you is that minerals are no longer just inputs. Minerals are not just commodities. They are the strategic inputs shaping national security, economic security, and energy security. But if there's one lesson that we've learned in recent decades, but particularly over the last year, it's that we're not going to solve this problem on our own. Governments can't secure mineral supply chains on policy alone, and industry can't do it just on balance sheets. So this is a market that requires partnership and cooperation, and every single one of you in this room today brings a very distinct perspective, but we all share a common goal, which is bringing together supply chains that are reliable, responsible, and secure. Today is not meant to be a traditional conference. It's really meant to be a dialogue. And CSIS's role here is to provide a trusted, neutral space for these conversations to happen in. It's a place for candid conversation about what actually unlocks investment, which we'll hear a lot about today, aligns incentives, and brings projects to production. So I want to just offer you one call to action as we get started. Over the course of today, I encourage each of you to move beyond diagnosis, because we spent years diagnosing the problem, spent years telling you why we don't have minerals, to think about execution, towards the policies, partnerships, and transactions that actually move projects forward. This dialogue is designed to be practical, and if we leave today with clearer pathways to bankable transactions, stronger alignment, and better understanding of how to turn agreements into deployed capital, then we've done our job. The stakes are high, the window is narrow, and the opportunity is real. So thank you so much for being here today. But I want to do a couple quick housekeeping notes. We have a very full room, as you can see. We are standing room only. So first, everyone has a badge. If you step out of the building, we will ask that you take your badge and leave it at the front desk and pick it back up with ID. This is just to keep the building secure, given the guests that we have in the building. Second, for restrooms, when you leave this room, if you turn right and then right, you're going to have bathrooms. If you are on a different floor of the building, they will be on the left next to the elevators. And with the exception of the firesides today with Secretary Burgum, Secretary Lutnick, Undersecretary Helberg, and Chairman Molinar, today's discussions are closed door and are not open to the press. Throughout the day, our team will be here to guide you, and anyone wearing a green lanyard is CSIS staff, and we'd be delighted to help you in any way that we can. Today is also really about good conversation and dialogue. We've built in time for breaks, and we will host a drinks reception from 6 to 7:30 that we hope that you'll stay for to kind of build on the relationships you've nurtured through the day. Now, I'm pleased to kick off our program with our keynote fireside. Secretary Doug Burgum brings a rare perspective to critical minerals, one that spans natural resource development, energy policy, and economic competitiveness. As Secretary of the Interior, he sits at the intersection of permitting, production, and national strategy at a moment when all three of these matter enormously to getting projects moving. We're grateful for his leadership and for his engagement on this critical agenda. Please join me in welcoming U.S. Secretary of the Interior, Doug Burgum. Thanks so much for joining us. Over to you.
Great to be here. Well, thank you for the kind introduction. As a part of a welcome, let me lead with gratitude for the assembly here and for Gracelin and for CSIS, who I was here just Saturday. Had a wonderful meeting on Saturday at lunch as well. But gratitude for hosting today, and also for all the private sector companies that are here from around the world, and also for all of our partners from the countries that are around the world that are here for tomorrow's ministerial. If you're in this room, you're a VIP, and a VIP in the sense that right now, this industry and this topic of critical minerals is essential not just to the fabric of the economy of the United States, but to the fabric of the economy of the world. And as this room knows more or better than anyone else, that it doesn't matter with the car that you arrived in here today, the plane that you flew on, the cell phone that you're holding up, taking a picture of Gracelin, whatever it is in your life today does not exist without critical minerals. I mean, it is the foundation. And of course, with the, as we've expanded the criticals mineral list here in the U.S. to make sure that we don't have that we've got secure supply chains between us and our allies. That includes things that may not have been on the list before, but with the phosphates or the potash. So it's critical to our food supply as well. So if you're here today, you're working on this, whether you're an investor, whether you're a country, whether you're a policymaker, we're grateful for your presence. We're grateful that you're here. Looking forward to the dialogue that's going to occur today and the meetings tomorrow. But again, thank you for being part of the solution. The work that you're doing matters. And it matters literally to the whole world and the future of humanity. Human flourishing depends on our ability to safely and productively be able to mine, extract, process, and utilize the minerals that are being discussed today. And it's so exciting to have all of you here in Washington, and of course, to be a representative of the Trump administration, which has made this a priority, along with all of, again, a shout out to all of the rest of the cabinet. It's really a whole of government approach, and whether it's the Department of War, the Department of Energy, the Department of Commerce, Department of State, Department of Treasury, Department of Ag, you go down the whole list, of course, Department of Interior, all of us together working hand in hand around this, this energy and economic agenda. And so again, grateful to have the opportunity to speak today.
Thanks so much, and thank you for your leadership. I mean, it has been the most cataclysmic year for minerals in the last year that I think we've probably had in the last 50.
Well, I think so, and of course, President Trump, those that you're here and follow the election know that one of his most famous 3 words that he said was drill, baby, drill, when he was talking about the oil and gas, a way to simplify an entire strategy down to the idea of that we need to have energy abundance. That's really what drill, baby, drill means. It means we've got natural resources. Let's develop them for the benefit and the use of ourselves and our allies. Energy dominance is not about dominating other countries. It's about being able to sell energy to our friends and allies so they don't have to buy from countries that might be using those oil proceeds to either fund terrorism or fund wars. And in the same way, then, we've adopted it here for this topic, which is we also say mine, baby, mine. But in some cases, which is, and of course, the Department of Interior has got a role playing on that, both permitting our onshore and offshore resources. But we also, the U.S. Geologic Survey is part of the Department of Interior. And the Department of Interior, probably the most misnamed department in the world because it spans everything from Guam and American Samoa to the Caribbean, 14 time zones, 500 million acres of surface, 700 million acres of subsurface, 3.2 billion of offshore acres, all under management, under Interior. If it was a standalone company, it would be the largest balance sheet in the world by far. But then that would make me, as the leader of that, would make me like the head of a hedge fund that has the world's worst returns. Because we've had, in prior administrations, we've been not developing, we've been shutting down mining in the U.S., shutting down resource development. And part of the Trump administration plan is to turn that 180 degrees around. And with USGS as part of our portfolio, getting them back in the mapping business. So we also say map, baby, map, because we know that there are lots of resources, even within U.S. domestic, federally owned public lands that we haven't discovered or fully understood yet.
Secretary Burgum, we're here on the eve of one of the biggest State Department ministerials, all focused on minerals. What do you see as being good international cooperation on minerals? Where do you think we've made some big wins, and what do you think we need to unlock better cooperation with over 45 governments in the room here today?
Well, I think that, again, I'm grateful for all the countries that are represented here today. You represent important friendships, important partnerships, and critically important alliances for the United States. One of the things, of course, that has brought us all together, all the countries, is that we have somehow, if you go back and take the history of the U.S., 100 years ago, the United States was the energy dominant producer in the world. You take a look at just about any form of we're the critical minerals and the mining dominant country. If you go back again in the early 1900s, pick any metal, the United States might have had 30, 40% market share in those. If you say that today, that's flipped. It's not the US and it's not our allies. So part of what began earlier this year when we understood the importance of supply chains and said the United States, we can't put ourselves in a position, ourselves, the free world, the Western world, where one country could, shut off, say, something as simple as magnets, which represented a small dollar amount, but that would have shut down every automobile plant in the world. We're saying that's not acceptable. One of the responses to that, one of the innovations in regards to that has been what is informally called the Club of Nations, but all the bilaterals that the United States is signing. We started off with 5 before a trip through the Pacific, but with Australia, Japan, and Korea taking the lead. Work, continued in the Middle East with signing an important one with Saudi Arabia. We have plans to announce as many as 11 more of those agreements this week coming out of the bilateral. We know that there is strong interest from another 20 countries coming behind that. And again, the concept there is that we would have tariff-free trade and exchanges amongst those countries around these critical and rare earth minerals, again, to create a block. And part of that would be, part of those agreements in some cases have included price floors. Typically the United States, we're free market folks. We don't like messing with markets, but if you have someone who's dominant, who can flood a market with a particular material, they have the ability to essentially to destroy the economic value of a company or a country's production. And so that's where within this Club of Nations, there'd be a price floor, so people would know that with those price floors, we can attract long-term capital, that the private sector can get involved and make investments in mining and refining, knowing that there's going to be a market and they don't have to worry about the bottom falling out because of predatory trade practices. So that's the work that's going on to reestablish the fundamentals to allow a free market to work so that private capital can get into the mining and refining of these minerals for all the nations that want to participate.
I really appreciate, I think, how you've underscored how these policy signals make projects more bankable. Are there any other policy signals that we're sending to get projects? You talked about the worst return on a hedge fund. How do we improve that?
Well, I think one thing you saw yesterday, the announcement that came in the Oval Office, which again, tremendous teamwork across, like almost 10 different major departments within the administration, and credit to lots of folks who worked very hard to get there. But a special shout out to the XM Bank and their president and his team, everything that they. I know he's speaking here later this afternoon, but great work there. This is 2x the largest deal that XM Bank has ever done. $10 billion loan. Already there's $1.67 billion of private capital from dozens of companies that have committed to participate in the U.S. Strategic Critical Minerals Reserve. And think about this, we all are familiar with having strategic petroleum reserves. That's been a stabilizing force in the world. It helps ensure peace. It helps stabilize price. The need in the U.S., we still have a strategic petroleum reserve. It still is important, but with the shale revolution that started about 15 years ago, with the shale revolution, it's not, where is it? It's just how much you want. You can it's much easier to just turn it on and start producing more oil. And so in many ways, our Strategic Petroleum Reserve, we have a specific one that the government has, but we also have another one that's just in the ground where we can get it. So that market has helped stabilize. But with critical minerals, the inventories here, well, we had some for defense. We did not have really for regular industry. So that we knew there was a need. We wanted to participate. We wanted to bring that private capital in. We didn't want to go to Congress and say, hey, how about an appropriation for $12 billion to kickstart that? That could have taken a long time, may have not even come, may have not happened. But now we've got a way where this can actually be profit making for the private sector. It's got a positive accrual back to U.S. citizens as taxpayers. And I think everybody saw what happened in the markets today, which is if you have anything related to rare earth or critical minerals in your name, your stock went up today. So again, it helps drive capital into this important sector. And again, I think this great announcement yesterday, and again, a credit to, I want to go back to President Trump, because President Trump, the deal maker in chief, basically said, figure out a way to get it done, do something that's innovative, don't use taxpayer dollars, but create a structure that will help get the private capital flowing. And that's exactly what, again, so, Baskaran, Lutnick, Wright, XM Bank, Department of War, again, credit to spread around the whole group. And of course, you mentioned, I think in the opening, the National Energy Dominance Council, which I've got the honor of chairing, also very involved working with the NSC, because this has also got direct ties back to national security. So great team effort across the Trump administration.
No doubt that so much of the progress that has been made has been a result of stronger coordination between agencies.
Well, I think that's, yes. And government is often siloed, and the solutions end up having to be cross-cutting. And so again, kudos to President Trump for creating the National Energy Dominance Council, which was meant to be the focal point within the White House, whether it's a permit, whether it's a new idea or new program, to cut across, bring all those leaders together. And while that is, the NEDC is less than a year old, it's also what is racking up in terms of speed and accomplishment, supported by all these great leaders, has been fantastic.
You've said a lot about how we've made projects more economic. Sometimes I think we're all on the same page geopolitically, that diversified supply chains are a good thing. But one of the other risks facing the mining sector, particularly in this country, is the state of permitting. Can you tell me a little bit about what you've done on the permitting side?
Well, the permitting side has been really fun. Because the opportunity was so great for improvement. But we've had some remarkable changes here, and I would just highlight a few. With President Trump declaring a national energy emergency, that gave us some new authorities of which we could move things more quickly through the process. We also just applied, I think many people here know that I'm not a politician, that I came from the private sector, where I spent 30 years in tech and 30 years in software, and the part of software that I was in was essentially, you'd lump it into a category called B2B, or business process improvement. So I look at processes and I'm like, how can you make these more efficient? And then I would hear these things when I was in the private sector, which is, wow, it's unbelievable. It takes 2 years to get an environmental assessment, or it takes 4 years to get an environmental impact statement. You're like, wow, there must be a lot of work. So arrive here at the federal government and say, let's just take one of these things apart and look at the steps. And it turns out that a bunch of the steps are, when I finish my part of it, I email it to you. But I tell you, you've got 30 days to get back to me. And then at the end of 30 days, you're fantastic, great. Taught at Cambridge, amazing, you're right on time on 30 days. But then we send it to the next person, and they said for 30 days. And then at the 29th day, they say, oh, I need 15 more days. And then it goes through, and it's just like this email chain was the core of some of these processes. I guess it wasn't shuffling paper, they were just shuffling emails. But the amount of actual work that went into the project didn't take a year. So we said, what if we took one of these things and we don't change anything at all? We don't go to Congress, we don't do whatever. We just, when it's done, when this process is done, the next person starts immediately on it. And we did an EA in 12 days. We did an EIS in 24 days. Because it was 24 days of work and 12 days of work. They said, well, and the naysayers said, well, it'll never hold up in court. People will sue. They'll say you cut corners. You weren't following all of Congress's rules to protect the environment. I said, I will put our 12-day product against somebody's 2-year product in front of a judge and ask him to decide which one took 2 years and which one took 12 days. I think the 12-day product might be better, because it was a team of people, that was strike team, that were focused on getting it done. So and this is before we've applied AI. Well, then you say, okay, the thing they were working on has been done 80,000 times before in some fashion. What if we used AI to cut a bunch of that work out and make it even shorter? So some of this is just it's not, the permitting is just the fact that the federal government is decades behind on applying IT to core processes that any private sector company would be out of business if they were operating this slow. But when you're a monopoly, if you're the only place you can get a permit, I guess you can take as much time as you want to. But let's talk about, I've talked about the micro problem on the inside. Let's talk about the macro problem. It's estimated easily over $1 trillion, could be as high, some say as high as $1.5 trillion of capital that's been approved by boards in the private sector. They said, we approve this project. Here's the money. Go ahead, do the 10 billion thing here, do the 5 billion thing there. And then the money sits there and doesn't get spent because they can't get a permit. So if we want to supercharge the U.S. economy, one of the things we have to do is speed up permitting. And it's not about new capital, it's getting the capital that's already been approved actually being deployed. And so again, mining, let's use an example. We came across one, it was a mine in Arizona. They came to see us. I said, how long have you been working on this permit? They said, 29 years. 29 years to get a permit. I'm like, wow, so you come out of college, you start, your job is you work on the permit, and then you retire, and you're like, oh, we almost got the permit. So we got that one done in 4 months. That took a little bit longer, but they have their permit, and they're going. But some of these things we just dive in, and we've got to make it happen. And I'm giving examples from Interior, but I know the same thing is happening in other departments across government. All of us are working on this. Lee Zeldin, EPA, massively accelerating the work that they're doing. So it's been very, very fun. And then, of course, we all of us cabinet leaders, we do, one other thing you should know is we work for someone who says, if you can't get that permit, I'll come down there and I'll get it this afternoon. So it's like President Trump has no tolerance for permits slowing up things. And so, we all believe him when he says that if he's going to get one that day, that he's probably going to get a permit.
I would believe that.
Yeah.
Now, I want to come back to something you mentioned earlier, which was the critical minerals list. And one of the challenges we've had historically in the U.S. is that we haven't always had mission clarity and execution with where we're going. We've had different critical minerals lists. Uranium is on one, it's not on another. Copper is on one, it's not on another. What do you think this new list really signals about the priorities that this country has?
Well, I think it signals that the list has to be dynamic. I mean, you mentioned copper, you mentioned uranium, and uranium had gone off the list. Like, we don't need it. And then it's like, we don't need uranium on the U.S. critical minerals list. And then it turns out, at the time that Russia invaded Ukraine, Russia was the #1 supplier of uranium to the U.S. It's like, that doesn't work. That doesn't make any sense from a national security standpoint. So uranium's back on the list. Copper, I mean, we need enormous, people say, oh, copper, there's copper everywhere. No, we need copper in amounts we've never seen before because of the demand for AI and data centers and for all things related to technology. And so it's back on the list. And so the list is dynamic, but it also reflects the changing demands of the market. It also reflects the changing geopolitics of what's going around the world. And it reflects a signal to the market that these are on the list for the U.S. And these represent sound investment areas.
We have over 100 companies here today, Secretary Burgum. If you had one message for companies and investors on how to better partner with government, what would it be?
Well, I would say to the companies that are here, if you haven't already made a connection with the National Energy Dominance Council inside the White House, you should, because I have met with CEOs that are still, even though this administration has been here a year, I've met with CEOs that still think that government is operating at the speed of government as opposed to government's operating at the speed of this administration and President Trump. And so then they're surprised, and then we have meetings, and I've met with companies, and they say, wow, we've never thought that the government would be going faster than we were as a company. And so my advice is that companies have to unlearn what you thought it was in terms of the speed at which government could move, and say that if you've got a project that relates to national security, it makes sense for America and the world, you're going to find an environment that's just very different than you've had before. Because if I mention all these names of the cabinet leaders, everybody across the cabinet I mentioned, they're all CEOs, business leaders. I mean, this is stacked with people that understand and love the private sector, and the private sector is not the enemy. The private sector is our partner, and we want to work with them, and we work with the private sector. Then what happens? The economy gets stronger, the GDP grows, it lifts all boats. I mean, we are absolutely a pro-growth, pro-business administration. And so I would just say people have to recalibrate and reach out. And if you're sitting back around the boardroom complaining about how slow the government is, then give me a call and I'll put you in the right touch, and we'll see if we can change that perception. And if you are having a real problem, then as we like to say, give us names. I mean, it's like who, where, which department, which office, which person, which process is your problem, because then our job is literally go out and fix that and figure out a way to be more responsive to the private sector and get that capital flowing.
So, as we kind of move towards the end here, 2025 was a very dynamic year. I mean, it was really, really transformative. When you look ahead to 2026, what do you see as being your priorities, both with domestic minerals, but also international cooperation?
Well, one of the highest priorities is why you're all here, which is we just can't be in a position where our entire economy and everything from national defense, national security, automotive technology, all the things we covered before, is in a position to be held hostage by someone that could, change the world economy through a form of export controls. So that part's really important. We just have to really keep focusing on that. And making sure that we're driving ahead. And that's, why grateful everybody's here. Today's an exciting day. Tomorrow's going to be an exciting day, getting all these agreements signed to make sure that we're moving forward around this, because it's not just the U.S., but the world. The world will be more prosperous. What's exciting what's happening on, advanced science around new materials. I mean, what can happen? I mean, with these minerals, it's not just what we're doing, it's what we can do. And then you throw AI on top of it, and you start looking at all of the aspects that could happen. I mean, we've got a power generation problem in this world. And then people say, we've got supply chain constraints because we aren't building enough turbines, we're not building enough electricity, we're not building enough this. And then you meet with some folks that are doing geothermal, and they're like, geothermal is a little out of reach. What do you need? We need advanced materials that can survive at 400 degrees versus 300 degrees when they're down deep in the really hot stuff. If they did that, then suddenly, then this would become economic in lots of other places. So we've got to get back. When I say mine, baby, mine, we've got to get back as a country and as a world to understanding that we can build great things quickly. When we build great things quickly in the world in the past, it was done. Name all the great things that were done in the world that didn't include minerals. And they couldn't have had the minerals, they wouldn't have had mining. So part of what we have to do, our nation last year, we graduated 36,000 lawyers in America last year. We graduated 300 undergrads with mining and metallurgical degrees. 300. I mean, we're off by 1,000 to 1. We've got to get back to this business where young people and universities and science and say, look, this industry that you're all in, this business you're in, really, really matters. And there's an exciting future here, and it's going to solve some of the world's biggest problems. I mean, the future is going to be one of abundance. Our path to get between here and there, which I know we can solve any concerns that people might have around the environment, between AI, between advanced science, between materials, between what this group is going to get done, that's all solvable. The existential threat is not a degree of climate change in 2100. The existential threat is that we were going to regulate ourselves out of business by, again, even as I look at Interior, I made the joke about the hedge fund, but if you have a series of prior administrations that were like, we're not going to cut a tree, we're not going to mine for minerals, we're not going to do oil and gas. Oh, and by the way, cows are bad for the environment. We're not going to graze on our grazing land. Then basically you have the world's largest balance sheet, but you're not going to use it for anything. And I believe in this country, I believe in innovation, I believe in abundance, and I believe that we have, and the U.S. has done things better, smarter, faster, and more innovative than any other country. And we can continue to do that, and we'll solve all the world's problems. And what's ahead for us? Age of abundance, human flourishing. Innovation has always been the source of American greatness, and it will be again. And the Trump administration, under President Trump, we're trying to unleash that innovation.
Because even if we wanted to build solar panels and wind turbines, they're not made out of wheat, soybeans, and grain, it turns out.
No, there's definitely there's a lot of hydrocarbons in when you're building particularly wind, and certainly a lot of minerals that are included in those solar panels, and then you start thinking like things about space solar, other things like that. There's a lot of exciting breakthroughs that could be coming.
I like that. I think innovation has always been America's strong suit.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This was fantastic. Please join me in giving him a round of applause. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a